All right, welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of High P at Home. We're going to switch it up a little bit today and talk about outdoor volleyball, which is a huge component of what we want to do. As always, I'm joined by my partner, Scotty Touzinsky. Scotty, how's it going?
Good to see you guys. Always a fun time being on.
We've got two really special guests today. We have our outdoor director, John Rodgers. John, how's it going?
Good. Excited to be here.
And one of the prominent members of the outdoor community, Mr. Joe Uydess. Joe, how's life?
Hi, everybody. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
So we'll get started right here, right away. Kind of want to get started by asking you guys, what attracted you to outdoor volleyball? How'd you get into outdoor volleyball? John, being a Midwest guy, how did you get started in the outdoor game?
It was just kind of a natural thing. We all started falling in love with the game of volleyball, and then believe it or not, there was beach volleyball around when I was playing and stuff, and it was obviously nothing like it is now. The opportunities weren't as great, but it was pretty wide. And actually, we played on a tour. There was a couple different tours that we played on throughout the Midwest, and it just became. It's the whole outdoor. You're outdoors. You're having fun. All that kind of stuff. It's pretty addictive, and we played a lot when I was playing a lot. So,
John and I actually might have a common start in some of the outdoor volleyball. I actually got started playing volleyball at Concordia Turners, which John's cousin Mike likes to remind me that he was one of the people that built it. But that's where I got. we can talk about that later. I want to focus on you guys, but. Joe, you actually come from a coast where there's, beach or near a coast. How'd you get started in it?
Absolutely. Nope, I am a transplant here, so I've been out in St. Louis for about a decade now. I grew up in Virginia, on the East Coast, out in Richmond, so it's just about an hour and a half away from Virginia Beach. But actually got my start with just some friends. One of the local swimming pools installed a couple sand volleyball courts, which was new to everybody around there. And we just started to go out there and hit the ball around and figure it out. And I played some other sports growing up, but for some reason I took to sand better than anything. So we started that daily routine, and John talked about playing a lot. It was a daily occurrence, sun up to sundown. We were out there playing endless volleyball, and that was primarily how we got started in all of us.
It's cool because obviously you say in Richmond, Virginia, that's where Reed Pretty was born and raised, and it's exactly the same start that he had into volleyball. And it was at a pool. So I remember it might have been the exact same pool that he was at because he's told me that exact same story pretty much verbatim. Sand is such a great game. Obviously, sand allows you to play so far into your life. The easiness of it. The joints. Joe and I were just talking about yoga. And the sand is forgiving. And that's a big thing. Really, when you're playing beach, and obviously I'm sure you guys played on the big court, and they have the small court now. What did beach really help you out in your game of volleyball, translating into the indoor game?
Well, for me, it seemed like everything slowed down. It just became an easier game indoors when you came back, just because I think of all the reading that's involved, all the anticipation, all the, really focusing on what's happening on the other side. I think it really gave you a jump up on, your blocking defense assignments, whatever. I just think it really slowed the game down.
Yeah, for me, it was I kind of did this a little bit backwards. So I started as a sand player before I even stepped foot indoors for a good 5 years. I noticed from going from the outdoor game to the indoor game, the speed, indoors is just a lot faster in general. It hurt. It didn't hurt in the sand. I remember the first time diving for a ball indoors, like I was in sand, and it didn't go very well. So it definitely is way easier on the body and can be played for decades of your life. I've seen players in their 60s and 70s still getting out there and hitting the ball around, which is awesome. And I say I can do that if I jump in for 30 minutes in an indoor practice. I'm feeling it for days. not the case for sand. The other thing I'll mention, and just to kind of echo John, is absolutely what you learned from the sand game or the outdoor game or playing with just two people can absolutely make a huge difference on your indoor game. Court vision, communication, being able to read offenses a little bit better, and just tendencies of an individual, what they're doing that you have to pick up and have available outdoor game. If you don't, it's easy to be scored upon. So yeah, it's a great crossover for sure.
You know, it's interesting. John and I have talked about this quite a bit. How the outdoor game has evolved. I mean, we all kind of talked about. We just started playing. We just went to a sand court and started playing. It was, you know, back in the old days of volleyball, the dark ages. We didn't have practices 3 times a week. We weren't playing in tournaments every weekend. We just wanted to play volleyball. And so we rode our bikes up to Turner's, and there'd be 6 or 8 or 10 of us, and we'd play King of the Beach or whatever. Other than the rule changes, and John, you have a little better feel for the history, and you can speak to that if you want. But other than the rule changes, how have we seen how have we seen a change into a more structured outdoor volleyball life in the last, really, it's kind of exploded in the last like 5 to 7 years?
Yeah, I think USA Volleyball kind of brought it to the masses. I mean, it's existed, you know, on both coasts for a long time, but I think having the USA Beach has, like I said, it's opened the eyes to a lot of the younger players to get involved in it, you know. So and it's becoming a lot more structured, which is really kind of the opposite in many ways of what the whole beach game is involved with. You know, it was always play and, you know, argue and have fun and then just, you know, do your thing. Now you've got, you know, these highly organized tournaments, and they're great. Don't get me wrong, the events are great and stuff, but you know, now the proliferation of coaches out there, to me, that I see the advantages. But at the same time, and again, this is just a byproduct of how we learn. You know, you can learn a lot from playing other people and what they do, and then you start emulating that, and it's more of a self-learning kind of process a lot of times on the beach. And with all the coaching right now, I'm seeing some of these kids, they kind of lose out on that. Right? They kind of lose out on it for themselves. It's like they're just like indoor, they get this constant barrage of information and stuff like that. And I personally like to see the kids learn on their own, somewhat. I just think it makes them a better player. I think it makes them a more complete player. So again, it's great because they learn a lot about the game, but you know, a little bit of that is missing, I think.
You know, I want to follow up with you real quick, John, because one of the things when we were kids, we didn't just play sports because it was on our calendar. You know, we didn't, you know, nowadays, I always think it's kind of sad because nowadays I don't think kids are just going out and playing unless mom and dad says, hey, time for practice. Hey, we got a tournament. Hey, we got this. You know, speak to that a little bit about how the outdoor game can kind of be that outlet for that. Hey, you just want to go out and do something.
Yeah, and it's funny because last year we did a little bit of like a pickup league type of not event, but just like a regularly scheduled a couple hours, and we just said, hey, if you want to come out and play, right? There's no coaching, there's nothing other than you guys decide what you want to play to. You want to play to 15, 21, 25, whatever, and then you guys switch sides, you argue about calls, you know, figure it out on your own, and let them kind of go with that. And at first it was hard for the kids and the parents to just enjoy watching their kids play volleyball. And it was really kind of striking. But what was really interesting, after the first day, the kids absolutely loved it. I mean, they couldn't talk about it enough, and just how much they just enjoyed. And once we kind of, you know, educated the parents on what this is sit back and just watch your kid play and enjoy the fact that they're out there doing something that they love and having so much fun with it, and it was really quick how fast the kids kind of tuned out their parents. And I think that was part of what made it really enjoyable for them.
Joe, what about you? Where have you seen the biggest changes in the game in the last 10 years or so?
So, I mean, you touched on the rule changes, and that was a tremendous change. It's something I just wanted to touch on because, back when we all started playing the sand game, we were on a larger court, full size, what you would see on an indoor side. The game was, let serves weren't legal, and scoring was side out scoring. So you could only score when you had possession of the serve, which allowed for you to be more aggressive and just bigger serves. But from a defensive side, covering all of that space was way different. It helped if you were even smaller players, I think, are part in the game because you could take a lot more shots along and just had more to do that. I remember when they shrunk the court, it kind of started to take that away a little bit and brought some of the bigger guys that maybe couldn't scramble as well. Just their span was able to start to cover some of that space. So that was a big change. But the scoring, man, that was the biggest because if you think about it, we only would go to 11 or 15 points inside out scoring in. I mean, been part of matches that lasted for hours, just like a game, because you just get to this dead heat. Rally scoring took that away. And it was a little controversial when it came about because all of the old school pure players hated it. They wanted those long games, but the next generation found that was, more along their lines. From a viewer standpoint, it just depends. You can't put a match on TV that lasts for 3 hours. So they had to have something. So a rally score format allowed for devs to kind of compress that. And so you started to see that become more prominent on TV and seeing that, which I think is another thing that's slowly helped attribute to where we are today with the growth of the sport.
I want to go back to one thing you said, John, which was, absolutely tremendous in my opinion. And I say this all the time about the beach volleyball guys because really living in California for 20 years, you're down at the beach all the time. You see these guys on the beach, AVP guys, but there's guys down there that, you've never even heard of these guys. You've never seen them. And they are unbelievable volleyball players because that's all they've done is play on the beach their whole entire lives. And you touched on it that, letting them just learn how to play is one of the biggest things. But I always say is, these beach volleyball players are the best volleyball players on the planet. I think they're way better than the indoor volleyball players because they're all around volleyball players. That's obviously what the liberos have taken away from middles being able to have more ball control, being able to play defense and serve and all this stuff. So we get more, position specific. But, with two people on a court, Joe alluded to it, the big court, which is the size of an indoor court, two guys having to cover that whole entire space. How do you think going from the 2-man to the 4-man, obviously to the 6-man games on the beach, how do you think that differs all the way through of adding more people on the court, whereas all you do in indoor is see 6 guys on the court the whole entire time?
Joe, you want that one?
Yeah, as far as the different versions of outdoor court,
I love it.
You'll see, it'd be the same differences really as you see if you're playing with the sizes of 2 to 4 to 6 indoors. It's a good transition, I've noticed, especially if you're an indoor player coming out, a lot of them prefer to still play with the numbers and have more people around them because they're more comfortable with that. But I can tell you the better you get with it and when you start to get that comfort level, you just desire to have less and less on the court with you. It becomes the opposite feeling because you want that space to be able to play. When I went from outdoor into indoor, that was another thing I noticed right there was people were too close to me. Get out. I got all of this. Well, that's the whole back. We have to play with you. So, that's the other thing. But you'll see the purists want to play doubles, and then, you tend to see more of the rec level that I call it, loves playing sixes. And that's the other thing too, is all of these things are very competitive. You have high level competitive tournaments and sixes, fours, and doubles in the outdoor game.
And that's why I bring up that question. And maybe I didn't ask it or present it correctly, is because you're always playing competitively in a 2s, 4s, or a 6 environment on the beach. We never have anything indoor that's 2s or 4s. That's only, if we have a, beginning of a practice, fun little game that we put 2s and 4s out there. But you have these in tournaments, which is unbelievable. And people come out to the masses because every single game is a little bit different. It's super, super cool. John,
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
Well, I was just going to say, I think one of the things that is the kids are starting to learn with the more exposure to beach volleyball, the liberos are loving getting to attack, right? And the middle blocker types are loving starting to be able to pass and play defense and doing those kind of things. So the true joy of playing volleyball, being able to perform all of the skills, I think that's what everybody wants to do. Setters having to pass and hit too. I think that's why the beach game, a big part of why the beach game is so enticing to people for the athletes, because they're going, I'm doing everything and it's awesome. I don't have to just do this.
I think that's a great point. Scott Meaber likes to say the beauty of beach volleyball is that you can't hide. You have to be able to perform all the skills. But it's also kind of what makes it scary for people, right? Scotty mentioned middles. Middles are just used to rotating and going out of the game. A lot of them don't serve, they don't dig, they don't pass, and they don't get to experience a lot of this stuff. We've pushed outdoor volleyball on our kids, not for any benefit that we get other than they might improve. John, I want to start with you. Why is it important for these kids to be playing outdoor volleyball? I think there's a lot of reasons, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think the the indoor season can get long, and depending on a lot of factors, I think their interest and their excitement kind of wanes. I think that's normal, but I think especially here in St. Louis, everybody has a much better feel when it starts to get warm outside, right? And you can go out and get in the sun, right? And you can play the game in a different way. I think the timing of the season is really big, and I think that's part of why it's important. And it does kind of change their mind, like you said, the scariness of having to do that or whatever. But at least the way that we run a lot of our programs, we encourage that. And if they're out there trying to do something and they, shank a serve or hit a ball, whatever, there's nobody going, oh, you got to get your feet here and your elbow there and your ear there. It's, they just laugh and they move on but they're innately competitive, right? So you can watch them start to figure it out fast on their own. And I think that's what's really part of the appeal to the kids.
Hey, Joe, I want to pick at something that John said there, and we've mentioned it in a couple different ways. One of the reasons I encourage our kids to go play outdoor volleyball, play doubles, whatever, is the pressure is off, right? Indoor, we love indoor volleyball, and we love being a part of it, and the kids love it too. But there's just a different level of pressure in the indoor gym in terms of training, competing, work, playing time, all those things. And I think one of the important things for me is just go have some fun and relax and let that stress wash away. How important is that for you?
Oh, it's extremely important. That's the thing that I personally find as an escape is you get outside and away from the gym and away from all the noise and just the crowds. And you start to have a more of an independent feeling with that, which I think helps you as a growth as a player. All those other things, hitting all the skill sets, getting a chance to do things you don't normally do there. But I feel like in the indoor world, things can be so structured. Everything is here's your tournament schedule, here's your practice schedule, this is what you're going to do. In the outdoor venture, you're in control. I will play in the tournaments I want to pick. I'm going to practice when I want to practice. You don't have to have a lot of these crutches that you necessarily get, to have in an indoor environment. So that's, to me, the importance as far as if you're leveraging it, indoor, it just creates more opportunity and creates more chances for you to be able to put yourself in these positions to grow without needing all of those resources.
Yeah, our director of beach volleyball right now, Tyler Hildebrand for USA Volleyball, who is, in my opinion, the best coach in the absolute world. I think he's better than Russ Rose and all these guys. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but this guy's a mastermind. He has talked to me about, obviously, him coaching on the beach for so many years now and how that's helped him tremendously on his indoor game, and how he's taken little bits and pieces from the indoor game to the beach to the indoor game, and so on and so forth. How has, obviously, playing beach helped you guys be better coaches indoor? Because you guys are obviously two of the best coaches we have in our program. And I really want to find out, you guys work together, obviously, on the 18s team too. Do you guys implement any of that stuff inside of your practices? And how has that helped you become a better coach indoor-wise?
Yeah, I think, again, for Joe and I in particular with the background, yeah, because I think sometimes, we can get really specific about how things should be done and the technique and the real specific information and the constant feedback. And, in the beach game, like you said, there's a certain freedom out there, and there's a certain, just be, we talk about this all the time. We want to get the best athletes in the gym. And I feel like sometimes we limit what they can do because we're forcing them into a technique. Whereas, in the outdoor game, obviously there's all kinds of different ways of playing the ball, attacking the ball, digging the ball, everything like that. And I think, honestly, when the kids feel that in a practice situation, their natural athletic ability comes out, right? And I think the part of it is, it's really kind of a bottom line. Did you dig the ball? Did you set the ball? Did you attack the ball, right? And I think sometimes we get really into the style of how that was done, as opposed to the fact that it did get done and it got done effectively. So I think, again, with how I've done it and Joe does it too, we allow that kind of free flow kind of, hey, if you can get the ball up and gator or score with it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're accomplishing what you're intending to do, and we encourage that. Hey, gator dig a ball, I don't care, right? It's not going to hit you in the chest and hit the floor. So, yeah.
I love that mentality because, hey, volleyball is volleyball. Whether it's indoor or outdoor, if you're going to take a ball, you dig a ball. I mean, there's no right way or wrong way. I always say to dig a ball. If the ball's in the middle of the court and it's high and your center can get to it, anyway, head, shoulder, gator, who cares?
Yep.
Joe, what's your thought?
Yeah, no, those are all really fine. I before sand was a big deal with juniors or was even available for juniors when I was coaching indoor teams, doubles was something every team that came across my path was they were going to learn. Most of the teams that I had when they first attempted it, they hated it because they're out of their comfort zone. I'm a star, I can do that. Well, now I'm vulnerable feeling. So I'd always start them off and ask for their patience and let's give it a few practices and I'll check back. If you hate it, we won't do it anymore. It never came to that. They always, can we play doubles? Can we play doubles? And they'd go out there and then you would watch, all of a sudden words and where you're trying to, instruct, like, this is how you pass or this is what you do. They start feeling it out and it starts happening. Like I've been telling them to do that for months now. All of a sudden it just happens. And then also my favorite thing is when I see something that's outdoor done indoors. And I remember being at a national tournament and one of my players back then who got really into sand on her own, she'd come in and all of a sudden she's poking the score, because it was a tight set. She didn't know what to do, and you'd see open and she went, and what was that? I was like, not illegal, why not? Why not? So I think it does add to the variety of what you can do as a player. Again, offensively and defensively, but yeah, it's a huge beneficial tool.
I don't want to go back to something Scotty brought up about the different versions of the game. We've seen a lot of different iterations of outdoor volleyball in the, since its inception in terms of different rules, different time. One of the coolest things I've ever seen live as a volleyball fan was when I was a kid, and they dumped a bunch of sand in Union Station's parking lot, and they had a 4-on-4 tournament with some of the greatest players in the world. I think they had a tour, and it was just they're running combination plays. They have blocking schemes, setters running out of the back row to set, like all this stuff. Whether it's, John, I want to throw this to you first, whether it's the type of game, like the rules, like when, what type of game you like based on the rules or the different formats. What's your favorite version of beach volleyball?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Again, kind of a purist. I do love the doubles, but I agree with you. That 4-man was nothing short of awesome, right? And I'm really kind of surprised that didn't continue to evolve. Maybe the doubles players that were getting older, maybe they start taking to 4s. And you're right. If you watched it, the strategy that was involved, and it kept evolving because it was fairly new, was fascinating to me. I mean, it was, and people loved it. I mean, it was even on TV for a while, the 4-man, and it was really cool. I agree with you. Doubles, but I'm just kind of surprised the 4s didn't take off or hasn't reemerged.
It seemed like a perfect gateway for indoor players to cross over in outdoor. And maybe that's why. I mean, Joe, what's your favorite version of the game?
Like John, I'm a purist, so it's always going to be doubles. And 4s is fun. It's fun to watch. And again, for me, I'll play it, and it depends on who I'm playing with and against, on whether I think it's fun because I like it high level. But again, it's a space thing, so that's why I like it. But it still exists. You just don't find it on national teams. There's still 4-on-4 tournaments at pretty high level, and a lot of the current pros. I mean, there's I forget the name of it, but they do a 4-on-4 tournament every year. There's probably more than one out in California. They actually dress up in costumes and different things and have cool themes. So for them, it's just more of a fun thing. But I'll tell you, one of the other formats that I miss playing, I haven't seen it set up out here, but believe it or not, I'd have to go all the way to Virginia Beach to play this. It was grass, 2-on-2, but reverse, co-ed. So they short court, they'd spray the 10-foot line down. The ladies could hit from the front row. Guys just had to hit from the back. And, especially if you get some girls out there that can really bang, that was fun. But that one's just not as common. That might be one of my favorites.
Yeah, the obviously coach with Alan Knipe, he was on Team Paul Mitchell for the Bud Light 4-man right there in Union Station. He had tons of unbelievable stories about that all the time on our staff. Pretty cool. I want to go a little different direction here. When we heard Karch talk about the next potential Olympic sport could be obviously snow volleyball or ice volleyball, whatever the heck they're going to call it. That just I mean, I threw a funny thing. He could probably go to the third one or whatever. But for me, that's not the next spot. Joe, you alluded to it. It's grass volleyball. I mean, if there's nothing, more fun than sand volleyball, I think it's grass volleyball. There's been tournaments going on for the end of ages in grass volleyball. I mean, I grew up obviously playing it a ton. The reason I started playing volleyball obviously was down in Mare, but in my backyard, all the work I did was on my grass volleyball court in my backyard. Played against Sean Rooney, big battles here in St. Louis. He came down from Chicago, and it was just a blast of playing in the finals against him. But if it's up to you guys, and it's grass volleyball or if it's snow volleyball, what's the next one in the Olympics in your guys' mind?
Oh, I think we know snow volleyball is what's coming up. I don't see grass volleyball going in that direction. Snow volleyball, is it a realistic thing? I mean, you need to know. Can't have that. Grass is always there. So I think from a recreational standpoint, grass is going to be more prominent. But I'm curious. I've never played snow volleyball. I would have to try. I may break my neck within the first 5 minutes, but it is interesting. I'm really curious to see how all of that plays out.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously Lloyd Ball and his crew played in that snow volleyball thing. And I talked to him after he got back, and he's like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'll never do it again. Like, it seems odd playing with gloves on and boots, and it's wild. What about you, John?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Snow would be so hard to legislate, a similar surface, and I don't know. I just think I watched that too. I watched that tournament, and I don't know. It just seems so recreational, even though they're really good at playing it and stuff like that. I don't know how you could, what happens if the sun comes out, or what happens if it, ice. I don't know. I feel like that would be really difficult to, like I said, kind of put on and make it a reasonable, a reasonable tournament. But the grass is, like Joe said, it's everywhere. It's easy to do. I mean, the mother load out there in Colorado, I played in that, and that's legit. I mean, there's good volleyball, but the fields are, there's no potholes. There's no, there's nothing. It's almost like AstroTurf out there. So if there is another one, I would guess it's grass, but it seems like there's a push for the snow volleyball right now.
The grass is always greener on the other side. That's what they say.
and the court won't melt. So yeah, there's that. I've got a two-part question. I want to have some fun now. I got a two-part question for both of you. Best player you ever played against that everybody's heard of, and best player you've ever played against that nobody's heard of.
John, you go.
I can honestly say I played against Cart, so that's got to be the number one. It was kind of a funky situation. I'm trying to think of
what was the situation you played against Cart?
They came to St. Louis to do some promotion. I can't remember if it was for the national team, maybe down at the old arena or something like that. And they had a thing out at, I think it was Chesterfield Mall, where they set up a net and people got to play them. And the guys I was playing indoor with, we actually got to play against them. And then kind of a funny story, but one of our guys hit Steve Obradovich in the head. And he ended up with a bloody nose after that because Obradovich got pissed and got even with him, I'd say. The best player that I've played with, a couple guys from Illinois, it'd be either Jeff Barnett, who is a local guy, and Tony Lunig. I played with Tony for a long time. And on a national scale, you may not have heard of either of those guys, but especially Tony. I mean, he was legit. He played in Europe for a long time, and really a blast to play with him.
That's awesome. Joe, what about you?
There's no one I could list that anyone would know who I played against. That's the nice thing about this sport is that you have all the people and you see on TV and read about, and then there's this even larger world of people that you don't even know that are that great, but they're doctors or dentists or just regular business people that come out on the weekend. There was a guy back east, Mark Schuler, I used to play with and against from time to time, and he was legit. And I know he did some qualifiers back then. And then probably the person who got me into volleyball, his name was Chris McGuffin. He's someone I think could have gone far if he really put into it. And he would just kind of play around with it. He's the one to have on here because he's got great stories of playing against Nick and Phil. And he got his famous story is when he got into a jousting war with Phil Dahlhauser and threw him on his butt. But that was way back when they were getting started and even really left the state of Florida. But yeah, I've had the privilege of really playing against some very high level competitors. And if I could go out there and not get blown out, those were good days.
There's I love what you said there, Joe, is there are so many guys on the beach that you have no clue about, and they are so good. Every time I think of beach volleyball, I think of this guy down in Huntington Beach. His name's Bien. He's like this little Filipino guy, and I'm not joking. He's probably about 5'4", 5'2", maybe. But this guy jumped probably 50 inches out of the sand and carve you up all day long. And he would just run people off the courts down there, take all their money. I mean, you see this little guy, you're like, I'm going to play against you right now. And then real fast, you lost 21-7. It was just like, oh boy. I mean, legends down there are unbelievable. That's some of the cool things to see. Last question for me is going back to Karch again. And obviously Karch's thing that he would love to see is somebody play in the Olympics indoor and beach at the exact same time and just kind of carve it out every other day, or every day they're doing a different one. How feasible do you think that is? Obviously, we all know it's not easy. You know, there's no downtime, and you got to be an extreme athlete to be able to do that. But do you think we're ever going to see that, John?
Honestly, I for some reason I do. I do. I think obviously the schedule would have to work, and everything that goes into it. But I honestly can see it. Some of these, you know, like you said, I think some of those beach players are the best players in the world. And maybe it's a position that would be easier to blend in. You know, I mean, my first thought would be like a libero, right, that could play indoor all day long and then go out and dominate out on the court with a good partner and stuff. So, yeah, and I think it'd be fascinating to watch. I think it would be must-see TV if that happened.
Let's two-part this here, John, too. And do you think it's going to be a female or a male? Not trying to be sexist by any means, but, I mean, two totally different sports. If for me, and if I think, and I agree with you, I think it's definitely going to happen. I think a female would be able to jump in there first before a male. I think it's just, you know, because of women's game is such more finesse and obviously longer rallies and stuff like that. I think they'd be more feasible to be inside there than the guys. But what's your thought?
I agree with that. And I think, you know, I clearly think Misty May and Cary Walsh could have both done it.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, you know, especially Misty May. I just, for some reason, I just think that she could easily do it. And I'm sure maybe April Ross could do it. I think there's probably plenty of them out there that could probably do it.
Yep.
You know,
I've talked to April Ross about that before, too. Like, what? You could have done them both. Why? And she's like, it's just so hard for the training routine regimen of doing the beach, and you're working on two totally different things. So how do you blend them together as they come through? Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the challenge is the amount of time that you have to spend to be at the highest level of both. So taking away from that time to balance it would be the challenge. I mean, certain athletes, you take like Catherine Plummer, for example, she is standout in both. And can do that. But they, you know, as fall sport in college versus a spring sport helps. If they're just directly overlapped and someone's just changing back and forth, yeah, I think it can absolutely be done. Can't be done by just anybody. I mean, you have to, playing two sports at the same time in general is the challenge. And that's all it is. It's just playing two different sports. I think you would see a female doing that first just because of they're a little further along right now with the opportunities that are out there for them. And they have less direct impact with some of the seasons too, especially at the younger ages, where like high school boys volleyball impacts what you would be doing if you're getting ready for beach in spring. It's harder to do both.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point too, is obviously a lot of girls that play on the beach already play indoor in colleges. And so they're already getting dual sports there, still volleyball, but outdoor and indoor, obviously. And I think you're right. The women's, they'll be the first woman that does that for sure. And I'm with you guys. I'm guessing it's going to be sooner rather than later because the athletes that are coming out of college these days are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Last question before we wrap it up. You can pick a partner to play with, and you got to play one tournament. You got to pick one partner. In the history of beach volleyball, who would you play with, John?
Male or female?
It's up to you.
Co-ed would be Misty May because I still think she might be the best volleyball player, pure volleyball player that I've seen in a long, long time. Indoor, I would love to say Scott Touzinsky, but he would be embarrassed to be on the floor with me. I would go back to my buddy Jeff Barnett because we played in a ton of tournaments together and had way, way, way too much fun. And that'd probably be it.
That's awesome. Joe, who's your partner?
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with Karch. I mean, the opportunity to play with the best ever, and I think he'll carry that title for a long, long time. No question. Karch. Indoor, I'm not playing indoor.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm out on indoor.
Well, awesome, guys. Good stuff. It was great talking about outdoor volleyball with you guys and sharing this time. Really appreciate you being with us.
Hey,
Thanks. Thanks for everything. Hopefully we'll see you out there pretty soon.
I think the next time we might see each other might be on the beach. So we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
All right.